so we don't forget.
Good idea.
All right, you guys all set?
Yep. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my video off, and then Brooke's gonna.
I'm gonna start the live, so and then I'll let people in. So if we could just.
And then as soon as she lets the people in, then I'll play that.
All right. Good luck. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome, Kristy from Apple Rose Beauty. Thank you for joining us today live from Georgia.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And hello, Girls Night Live. So I have been looking forward to this for weeks. We've been planning this for a while. So I'm really, really excited to be here with you guys. My name is Kristy Alexander. I'm the founder and chief Big Hearts of Apple Rose Beauty. And Apple Rose Beauty is a luxury organic skincare line formulated with sensitive skin beauties in mind. We also have a big heart mission to end human trafficking. And I will get into that a little bit later about how we came to how that came to be our purpose. But I'm really excited to be here with you guys. I love doing these lives. I love interacting with you guys. What I don't like is feeling like I'm talking to myself. So I'm going to talk with you guys. I want you to talk back to me. So definitely, if you're watching on Facebook, type in the comments, on Zoom, type in the chat, Instagram, comment. And if you have questions, let me know what those are. I'll be asking you guys questions too. So please respond. I want to make this as interactive, as fun as possible. I am here to serve you. And I would love if you can talk back to me. So deal? We're going to do that. So that's the first question. Do we have a deal? Are you going to talk back to me? Yes. Okay, great, great, awesome. So I mentioned to you guys that Apple Rose Beauty has a big heart mission to end human trafficking. And I'm going to share my story with you guys and how I came to start this company. And I'm also going to be giving you guys some tips around human trafficking, how to protect yourselves and your family members. And then I'll also be leaving you with a really cool link where you can get free resources if you want to read up some more about human trafficking, about how you can take part in the fight to end human trafficking. And also, if you want to learn more about Apple Rose Beauty. I will also be back on this platform, Girls Night Live. I'll also be back for a live selling event if you want to learn more about the products and how they can work for your particular skin. I will be back on April 21st at 8 p.m. Eastern. So definitely mark your calendars for that. I'll remind you guys today as well, but I wanted to make sure I put that out there so you guys can mark your calendars. So you might hear a little bit of an accent. I am originally from the Caribbean. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, born and raised in Trinidad and Tobago. I have my parents were big on organic ingredients for everything growing up. So I always say chemistry is my first love. In chemistry class, back when I was 15 years old in chemistry class, we analyzed face powder, and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to start a cosmetics company. So I decided to write a life plan way back then. When I was 15, I was one of those planner kids, always had my journal nearby. And so I wrote a life plan then that I would start a cosmetics company, that I would work in business for a while, understand how to run a business, and then start my own company. But of course, life happened, as it does when you're 15, right? So life happened. I ended up getting a scholarship to study here in the US, to study in North Carolina. So any of you from North Carolina, drop in the chat. Let me know if you're from North Carolina, and let me know where you're tuning in from. I just love to know who's in the room as well. Let me know where you're tuning in from in the chat as well. But yeah, so I came to the US, did both my undergraduate and graduate degree in North Carolina. So I ended up doing physics for undergrad and engineering for graduate school. And so I worked in engineering and business and management for about 10 and a half years, was doing really well, was on the fast track. Oh, Kathy's from Jacksonville. Awesome. Awesome. I actually just moved from Jacksonville, Florida. So I lived in Jacksonville for 3 years, and Apple Rose Beauty is actually based in Jacksonville, Florida. I now live in Atlanta, Georgia. So welcome, Kathy. Yeah, so I worked in business and management for about 10 and a half years, was on the fast track, getting promoted every couple of years, loved what I was doing. And I was actually up for another promotion, and it just didn't feel like the right move for me. So how many of you have ever had that point in your life where you're kind of going with the flow, and then something just doesn't seem right? It feels like you need to pivot, it feels like you need to do something new, or it feels like this is not the purpose you feel like you were placed on the earth for. So how many of you have ever felt like that? If you've ever felt like that, say yes in the chat. Let me know if you've ever felt like that. And I'll actually get back to that. So there's a reason why I'm asking you that. Like I said, I like to keep these interactive. So let me know if you've ever felt that way in your life. So I was up for another promotion. Like I said, it didn't feel like the right move for me. I love traveling. I love serving in different cultures. I love helping people. And so I thought it would be really cool if I could travel the world for a year. So I literally Googled 12 countries in 12 months. If I could travel the world for a year, I thought this would be amazing. And I actually found an opportunity that was 11 countries in 11 months. And so I quit my job, left. I turned in my resignation a week before that meeting about the promotion, and I decided to travel the world. And so I went to 3 continents and went to 11 countries, spent a month in each country. In the 5th country on this trip, I was in Thailand, and I volunteered with an organization that helped rescue women from human trafficking. They are based in Bangkok, Thailand, and they actually helped rescue the women. They also housed the women, and they also employed them. And so I lived with these women. I lived with them. I worked alongside them. I taught them English. They taught me Thai. And that's when I realized that human trafficking, it became no longer a statistic that was out there. It became something that was real to me. I realized that this could have been me had I faced different circumstances, or even here in the US, it happens all around the world. And I decided that I needed to do something about this. It was also around the time with the Bring Back Our Girls movement. So I'm not sure if how many of you remember that, but there was a time when that hashtag was really popular in social media, but hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. And it was related to the girls in Nigeria that had been abducted by the terrorist group, the Boko Haram. They had abducted these girls from high school, from physics class, abducted them, and they were also threatening to sell them into human trafficking. And so my heart just broke for the cause. And it was one of those things where, I've experienced before where you feel like sad about something, something happens, you feel sad, you feel sorry, and then you kind of get over it and move on. This was one of those things that didn't leave me. It stayed with me, and I knew that it was because it aligned with my purpose, that I had to do something about this. And so that dream that I had about starting a cosmetics company that I had way back when I was 15 years old in a chemistry class back in Trinidad and Tobago, that came together with this fight to end human trafficking. And I actually named my company after two victims of human trafficking I met. Their names were Apple and Rose. And so my company is called Apple Rose Beauty. And our big heart mission is to employ survivors of human trafficking and donate to organizations involved in their rescue and rehabilitation. So that's kind of the story behind Apple Rose Beauty. It's the story behind the heart behind our company. It's kind of the story and the part of my company that keeps me going when things get hard, especially in a time like last year when things were really, really tough. But I wanted to share with you guys, usually when I share that story, I get a lot of questions about purpose, a lot of questions around purpose. A lot of people ask me, well, how do I know what my purpose is? Or I don't really know what I want to do with my life yet. I still feel like I'm growing up. And that's a perfect place to be. That's absolutely perfect place to be in. But I wanted to share some things with you that I think looking back kind of helped me from a mindset perspective. I think a lot of us read, self-help books, and we read different things, and we hear different things about, think about what you're good at and see what you can make money with, and all of these different things. And those are great. Those are things that you can do. But I wanted to take a little bit of a different perspective. So I am also going to share today tips about how to help you protect your family from human trafficking. But before I get into that, I really felt like I wanted to share with you as well, just really briefly, some mindset things that if you're in that space where you're wondering if you're on the right path, or you feel a little bit disconnected from what you're doing, your heart feels disconnected from what you're doing, these may be some mindset things that might be helpful for you that I wanted to share with you guys. Like I said, if you have questions, definitely drop those. I'll be answering those as well, and definitely talk with me. But I want to share some of these tips with you. So the first one is to observe or listen. And when I say observe or listen, I don't mean observe or listen to your surroundings, but observe or listen to yourself, to your heart, to that soft voice, that really it's a voice that you hear when you're really still and really quiet. And also observe your actions, observe your emotions. What I've learned about purpose is that it's all around you. Like, the things that trigger you, the things that make you angry, the things that make you sad, the things that make you frustrated. I believe that all of those things are hints about what our purpose is. For example, in my own life, I see a common thread around empowerment. I'm really passionate about empowering people in every walk of life I've ever been in. I've always been really passionate about seeing other people achieve their potential. And that happened when I was a little girl. I used to teach everything that moved, and I really felt like I would be a teacher one day. I love seeing people's eyes light up when they kind of have that aha moment. And even in corporate America, I was really passionate about seeing my direct reports progress in their careers. And I was really passionate about helping them really tap into what they were good at and what they were passionate about. And I realized that that passion and that desire to see people empowered was what really triggered me when I came face to face with human trafficking. Because human trafficking at its core strips you of your freedom, and it strips the the person that's trafficked, it strips them of the right to chart their own course and their right to see their potential realized. And so I think that was what really triggered me, and that desire to see people empowered is what tapped in at that point, and what really got me angry about it and got me sad about it and triggered me to really make a difference. And so I would love to encourage you guys to really tap into to observe yourself, observe what those things that you see around you that really trigger an emotion in you, and that can be that can give you enlightenment into what your purpose can possibly be going forward. So really listen to yourself, listen to your heart and observe yourself. So that's the first thing. The second thing is be patient. It's all about timing. I know for myself, I loved what I was doing in corporate America, but it really didn't feel like my purpose. It didn't feel like I was doing what I was placed on this earth to do. And I always felt that way. I always felt that way. I was good at what I did. And like I said, I loved what I did. I loved the people I was with, but there was something that was missing. And I realized that really my purpose could not have been realized until I met Apple and Rose on this trip, this 11-month trip that I took around the world. And so all those times and all those years that I was kind of frustrated and kind of searching and trying to figure things out, that was great, but there was a set time for my purpose to come to fruition. And so I want to encourage all of us to be patient in that journey. Life is not about anything in particular, any kind of end goal, but it's all about the journey, right? All we really have is today. All we really have is the present. And so just really encouraging all of us to really be patient on that journey, to enjoy the journey, and trust that while we are searching for purpose, that purpose is also searching for us, right? By definition, we are purposed for that purpose, right? And so it'll also find us as long as we stay open to it and as long as we stay willing to pursue that purpose. So I want to encourage all of us to observe ourselves, observe what triggers us, and also to, be patient along that journey. And then the third thing I want to share with you guys is to take the leap. And I am a big proponent of calculated risk. So I am not one of those people who's going to encourage anyone, especially anyone who's looking to go into entrepreneurship, to just do it without counting the cost, right? Entrepreneurship is not an easy path. And so I always encourage people to be planful and to think about it, to think about, making sure that they have a little bit of a nest egg, making sure that they have some things in place so that when they do take that leap, or when you do take that leap, that you're not taking it out of desperation or making decisions once you do out of desperation because you have to eat, right? And you have to bring money in. So definitely take that calculated risk. But I believe that success comes when preparation meets opportunity. So on this journey, we're constantly preparing, we're constantly getting ourselves in place and in position for when opportunity comes, we can take advantage of that opportunity, right? So really, take that leap and don't be afraid to take that leap, but make sure that it's a calculated leap, it's a calculated risk, and that you've counted the cost, right? And there's no way to really count the cost of everything because you're not sure what's in the future, what the future holds, right? But it's really good to make sure that you're as prepared as possible. And so I'm going to take a look at some of the comments now. I see some of it has been coming in. So let's see. I'm going to read some of your chats. Oh, so we have someone from Toronto. Welcome, Michelle. Tanya is not from North Carolina, but lived in Raleigh for a short time. Perfect. So I actually went to NC State for graduate school, which is in Raleigh. Liz is from Rhode Island. How's the weather in Rhode Island, Liz? It's finally getting warmer here. Angela is from Maryland. Awesome. And Michelle says, what triggers me is that people are not educated that the government doesn't care about the health and well-being of people. And so that's really, that's an indication of something that you might need to get into, Michelle, whether it's educating or whether it's providing resources. So those things that trigger us are really, really indications of what we can do and what we're purposed for. And Michelle is also from Philly. Awesome, awesome. So I am going to share with you guys some tips for protecting yourselves and protecting your family members from human trafficking. And then we're also going to drop in the chat a link to some more resources if you guys want to get more resources about ending human trafficking or about how you can support Apple Rose Beauty to help end human trafficking. We're going to drop that link as well in the chat. And like I said, I will be back if you want to hear even more about the products themselves. I will be back on April 21st. So definitely mark your calendars to be back on April 21st. So I wanted to share some tips on how to protect yourselves and your family members from human trafficking. Before I get into those tips, I want to give you guys a definition of human trafficking, because I've found that there's a lot of misinformation or just misconceptions about human trafficking. It's often sometimes confused with human smuggling. And so I just wanted to share with you what the definition of human trafficking is, so you can have some background on that as I share these tips. So human trafficking is the exploitation of one human being by another for profit through force, fraud, or coercion. So through force, fraud, or coercion. So a lot of us understand force. A lot of us hear about stories of force in human trafficking, where a child may be abducted or someone is, snatched from their home and, put into a nondescript white van, whatever that looks like. We all have heard stories about force being involved in human trafficking. But actually, the more common way that human trafficking takes place is through fraud and coercion. And the most common way is actually through coercion. So coercion happens when a trafficker actually grooms his victim systematically to trust him or trust her, to trust him, and then exploits that trust. So a lot of times this takes place over a period of time. It's not a single action. It takes place over a period of time. It often happens in high schools with high school girls where they may think they have a much older boyfriend. And so they believe that the relationship is love, when in fact, often the relationship is a grooming process where he's grooming that young woman to trust him, and then to the point where he can eventually exploit her. And then fraud, we all understand what fraud is, where you think you're getting into one thing and it's another thing. So oftentimes we have teenagers or young adults who think they're going into a modeling gig and it ends up being something else, or they think they're going to film a commercial and it even ends up being something else. So those are the three ways that human trafficking takes place: through force, fraud, or coercion. And then it also has to involve profit. So it has to involve profit. One person is profiting off the exploitation of another. So 3 ways to protect yourselves, protect your family members from human trafficking. The first one, particularly if you have kids, is to have open communication. And I know that this is something we hear a lot and something that we often take for granted, but making sure that your kids know that you are a safe space for them to discuss anything that is happening in their lives. So, and also making sure that they are aware of the challenges out in the world, making sure that they're aware of the risks that take place, especially when it comes to social media or online gaming, just making sure that they're aware and educated. And so when someone approaches them, whether it's online or on through one of their gaming apps, that they can recognize what it is. It's not something that catches them off guard. So the first thing, like I said, being that safe space, being that that place where they know they can come to you and talk to you about their interactions during the day, and know that you are that place where they can feel comfortable doing that. And that's the same for whether you have kids, whether it's a niece or a nephew, or just family members that you are interested in. So that's the first one, the first way to protect yourselves, protect your family members. The second one is to be aware of fraud, right? Be aware that things are not always what they seem. And I always tell this story about a young lady who actually, she attended Emory University here in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I am right now. She attended Emory University, and she had this situation where while she was in college, she went out with a couple of her girlfriends. They went to the club or wherever, and they met a gentleman. He was dressed really nice in a three-piece suit. The bar owner seemed to know him. A lot of people seemed to know him. He had some woman there with him, and he said he was an agent for models, and so he had some girls there with him, and he gave her his card and said he would love to represent her. And she was a little bit not sure about it, but she talked to some of the girls. They seemed to vouch for him, and so the next day she called him and she agreed. And so she went in to do a photo shoot. The photo shoot went well. They took pictures, all of these things. The photo shoot went well, and then later on in not in that particular day, but later on in the relationship, she noticed that he hit another girl. And that's when she realized that this might not be what I think it is. And then it kind of developed into a situation where he threatened her and, threatened her family. He had her home address. He knew where her parents lived because she had to fill out like a W-2 form, all of those things. And so it kind of developed into a situation where she was actually trafficked and forced into it. And so just making sure that you check receipts and making sure that your children also feel comfortable telling you about things like that come up, because fraud is prevalent. There are a lot of things that are not always what they seem, right? And so being aware of that and just being able to check different things, check references, all of those things can protect you and also protect your family members. So that's the second way to protect yourselves and your family members. And then the third one is to be observant with, especially if you have kids, be observant for changes in their behavior. And I know this is a tricky one, especially if you have teenagers, because they can be a little bit, emotional in different behaviors anyway, right? But being aware and being on the lookout for changes in terms of if they're used to hanging out with their friends and all of a sudden it seems like they prefer to be isolated, or if they start showing up at home with expensive gifts and you're not quite sure where it's coming from, or if they're used to being, a bubbly kid and they're used to being talkative and all of a sudden they seem more reserved. Just looking for those kind of changes can kind of clue you into that something may be going on, and then you can open the doors of communication with them. So it's really, really important to be observant. If they're not your child, or if they're not someone that you're really familiar with, another thing that you can look out for is if they seem to, like, for instance, if it's a younger girl and an older gentleman, and she seems to defer to him often if you ask her questions. For example, if you're on a flight and there's a young girl next to you and you ask her something and she seems to look to the gentleman that's with her to respond, there might be something going on. There was a recent case with on an airline, and flight attendants are actually educated on this as well. There was a recent case on an airline where the flight attendant observed that kind of interaction between a young woman that was on the plane and the gentleman that she was with. So even simple simple questions like what snack she wanted during the refreshment service, she would defer to him to answer. And so the flight attendant, having gone through human trafficking awareness training, recognized that as being something that was a little bit off. And so they were able to call the authorities. And then as they investigated, they realized that it was a case of human trafficking. So yeah, so just be observant. I think that the biggest point here, or the biggest thread through it all, is to just be observant, be aware, question things, question opportunities that do come your way that seem a little bit too good to be true, or do come your children's way, and make sure that you're able to check into them and to validate them. So like I said, I know that's a lot of information that I shared with you. I have a whole lot more. I've done series of videos around human trafficking, recognizing it, what to do if you recognize human trafficking is taking place, all of those things. So definitely look at the link that we just posted in the chat, check out the link, and then we can send you a ton more resources, a lot of other videos that I've done around this topic. And like I said, I'm going to be back on April 21st to really share my products with you, help you understand how to take care of your skin, the things, the ingredients, and all of the things to look for your particular skin type and your particular skin issue, and also share with you a really cool opportunity to how you can support us at the live selling event. So if you have questions, definitely type them in the chat. Don't want to keep you guys too long. So let's see. I'm going to read the chat a little bit more. Brooke said, beautiful story. Thank you, Brooke. So Katie from Facebook Live is asking, what are some flags that parents should look for? Yeah, so I just kind of went over a few of them. Like I said, if you click on that link with the resources, I share a ton more with you guys. But again, those things to look for are, different changes in their behavior or in their personality. Looking for if they, if they're coming home with expensive gifts that you're not sure about where they're getting them from, because traffickers, as they are coercing their victims, they often shower them with gifts as, a display of pseudo love. They shower them with gifts. They make them feel like they have their best interest at heart. And so they groom them to trust them. And so making sure that you're aware of those changes with your kids is really important. Joanna says, thank you, Kristy. By the way, your skincare products are amazing. Oh, thank you, Joanna. So we have a customer on here. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yeah, so definitely check out those resources. Let me see if there's any more questions on here. Okay, so I don't see any more questions, and I'm not going to keep you guys much longer, but definitely check out those resources. We're also going to post my website in the chat as well, so you guys can get on the website. There's a contact me form if you have any more questions about it. Michelle says, your skin looks amazing. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And I didn't always have great skin. So I will also tell you guys the story about my own skincare journey when we get back together on April 21st. So I hope to see all of you there. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, Girls Night Live, for having me. And I'm excited to connect with you guys in the live selling event on the 21st.